Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sunday Brunch. I am your host, RM, and of course, we have with us today Russ Whitfield. Russ, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm okay. I had a quiet evening last night. I've got a friend staying with me from Canada at the moment, and we've decided to dive into Spartacus because we're both Roman history nerds. In fact, I met MJ. I didn't meet MJ about 10 years ago. She wrote to me because she'd read one of my books, and we started like a correspondence. And now, 10 years later, we're really good mates. So she's staying in the UK for a little bit, and yeah, we were watching. We watched the first one. The one that they made when Andy Whitfield was in recovery, called Gods of the Arena, which is like a prequel. And we just got through season one last night, which was brilliant. I think you and I must do a deep dive into Spartacus. I'm so impressed with it. Like after all these years, I only watched it once when it first came out, and like that was every week on Stars, as it was in the days of cable. And yeah, it holds up absolutely so well. It owes a lot to 300, but still, I'm really enjoying it. The acting in it is um, fantastic. Like it's just I really enjoyed it. Be interesting to see the second and third seasons now. It's obviously, sadly, Andy Whitfield got very ill and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he passed. Which is there's a film about that on Netflix. It's a real tragic watch. So be interested to see what the guy that they got to replace him does, because oddly, although Andy Whitfield will forever be Spartacus in everyone's mind, the other guy did 2 seasons, and Andy Whitfield only did one. So yeah, that's what we spent our time doing. And how are you?
I'm doing okay. And I guess hello MJ. I've met her a few times on camera, but I just want to say hi, MJ. Hope you're well. And Yeah, I went to see my mom. She's getting care for a wound, and I was with her overnight, so I didn't really sleep overnight. So it's one of those days where you're like, "Gee, I didn't sleep last night," and you kind of feel it a little bit. So
Yeah.
in fact, I'm wearing exactly the same outfit I was wearing yesterday. It's just, 12 hours or 15 hours later,
Mm.
as if I went out night and partied, but I didn't go out last night and party. I spent most of it in a wound care facility. So it was not, it was not like one of those fun things that my mother was like, "So what are you doing? How are things?" "Oh, okay,
Oh
mom.
no, no,
Are
dude!
you
I
going
was
to
out. I
sleep?"
was out partying on Friday night, and I was suffering all day yesterday. Like it was all I could do to order takeout, and I had like hair of the dog, and then I was asleep on the. I fell asleep on the couch at like 10:30, and then I woke up at like 3 o'clock, and then I couldn't get back to sleep. So yeah, I'm a little bit out of sorts myself. So I was partying, but yeah, as I say, watching Spartacus all kind of like in a warm fug of a blanket and the central heating. It was excellent. It was absolutely excellent. I'm really excited. MJ was also saying that she's got this other show called Domina, which is also like an ancient Roman thing. But I want to get through Spartacus first, I think.
Well, it sounds like you have some great Spartacus dreams, Spartacus nights and Spartacus dreams.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, they're
get
making
me
a new season. That's what hooked me onto it. Stephen Knight came out and they said they're working on a new season. And I thought, oh, yeah, I haven't seen that in years, and it was really good. It's top tier television for Russ. Tell you what else I've also been catching up on, and I know it's got a little bit quiet about this show lately, and I just cannot believe the quality of this show just keeps getting better and better, and that's The Last of Us. Like the pop culture landscape just seems to have moved on from raving about The Last of Us, and I just watched it now, because I always watch it just before our show, and it's one of those shows. It reminds me a lot of Andor, even though it's nothing like Andor. um, it reminds me of Andor in the sense that actually not a lot happens in The Last of Us. They just walk around and go to different places and have a chat with people, and then a little bit of something happens at the end, um, and then you get a cliffhanger, and that's the end of the show. But I'm just constantly impressed by the quality of the acting. In this episode, I think it was episode 7, I think, if I'm not wrong, where he finds his that they find a town and his brother's there, Tommy's there, and just Gabriel Luna and Pedro Pascal, man, they were just acting up a storm, absolute storm.
They do have
Um,
incredible chemistry, yes.
And again, like what really happened in that episode? You know, they found the Native American couple and they had a chat with them, and then they had a chat with each other, and then they found
Yeah,
the
I
town, and
loved
then
that part.
yeah, like they didn't give a shit, did they? Those two, they were just like, you know, the way he walked in and he's got a gun pointing at him, and he just sat down, and that was great. I'm so impressed by this show.
Well, of course, the Native American couple, that's Graham Greene. Of course, you remember him from Dances with Wolves and
Hmm.
a bunch of other movies. And the lady, I believe, who plays his wife, I believe it's her. She played the nurse in Northern Exposure. It was kind of a popular
Oh, we used to have it
show.
here. Yeah, it was
Yes.
on late at night on Channel 4.
And she played that nurse who looked at everybody's medical records and couldn't go out with anybody because she kept looking at their medical history and was like, I can't go out with that man because he has this. And it was like, and the doctor was like, you know, you're not supposed to be doing that. And she's like, oh, okay. But it was she has this charm about her, and you know those two would survive anything, wouldn't they? That husband and wife team. So it is very interesting to see that. And I agree with you. I think the last episode of The Last of Us was by far one of its best. It follows the video game exactly, that
Mm.
episode.
Oh,
So
does it really?
Yep, it does. And so I think that's why it was so good, because it kept to the writing that we know to be the case. Tommy, sorry guys, this is a spoiler. Tommy doesn't want to go or can't really go because his wife is expecting a baby. And now all of a sudden, Tommy has this responsibility that Joel was not expecting him to have. Now, I'm not quite sure why he didn't hear from his brother. If you recall, you know, nobody had heard anything, you know, on the ham radio.
Because the
And
wife, Maria, wouldn't. They don't use the radio because they've got this like amazing facility with electricity and everything. And you know, Joel says to her, well, how come you haven't been discovered? She said, well, we don't make any noise, we don't go on the radio, we don't do anything like that. So he, you know, it's basically they're communists, right? That's sort of brought out in the show. They live in a commune, and it's equal labor, equally shared, and everything like that. But one of the things they don't do is advertise their presence to anybody. So that's why that was the in show reason. But hey, before we carry on talking about The Last of Us, should we say hi to the chat and everyone that's come along today?
absolutely. Hello, Tom Jr. Jackson says hello. Welcome, guys, to Sunday Brunch Season 2, Episode 9. Good morning to you, Tom Jr. Jackson. And we have Retro Nerd Girl
Hey,
today.
Retro.
How are you, Retro Nerd Girl? Hope you are well. Good morning. I'll be doing the SAG watch party with Retro Nerd Girl today, if she is available,
Hmm.
at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be doing The Last of Us watch party tomorrow night at 9. As Retro Nerd Girl, it's such a pleasure to see you. I've been having great times with her, especially on our BAFTA Awards review show. It was so much fun last week. We also have with us Darth Plato is here. Hello, Darth Plato.
Hello, Darth Plato.
Sure hope you are well, Darth Plato. Always good to see you. As you guys know, I stream with Darth Plato as well.
Hmm.
Renz Tolentino. It's been a while, Renz. The incredibly talented artist Renz Tolentino. Do check out his artwork on Instagram. He just does such amazing work, Renz. It's such a pleasure to see you here this morning. We hope you are well. And Keely Chow is with us today.
Hey, Keely.
Well, Keely Chow, roll tide to you. I hope you are well. Keely Chow says, hey, everybody, good morning. Well, good morning to you, Keely Chow. We also have Gary Bando Sandwich Worthington says, engage positive fandom lasso. Absolutely. I'm throwing it out to you. And Gary Banda Sandwich Worthington, we hope you are well this morning. So good to see you all who are here. Stuart Mitchell is with us.
Hey, shit.
How are you, Stuart? Good to see you. And John Ware Jr. is here. He says, good morning. I'm hungry. Time for breakfast. It is time for breakfast. And you know, yeah, it really is. So you got that right. And Tom Jr. Jackson reminds us to join myself, Lorena, on the Burnettwork, soon to be Imagination Connoisseurs Unlimited at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Mondays for Ladies of the PGS guys. Yes, it's going to be so much fun, Retro Nerd Girl. We are going to have a great time at the SAG Awards tonight. And Tom, don't forget to put in your link for your channel, Tom Junior Jackson, so that we can see your link here. I do see that you put the link in for Ren's Tolentino's Instagram feed. Check out his artwork, and Ren sells his artwork, guys. So if you see something you like, you can buy it directly from Ren's. It's such an incredible selection of artwork he does. These hyper realistic pieces of the fandom and all the great shows that we love. So check out Ren's Instagram. Joe Tyson is here, Russ.
Big Joe, hey man, how's it going? Hope it's good to see you. Glad to have you.
Joe Tyson says, "Good day, RM and Russ." Well, good day to you, Joe Tyson. And Nathan Trihulo is also here.
Hey Nathan.
Nathan says, "Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing? Such a pleasure to see all of you today." And Russ, you know, I have to say, I agree with you about The Last of Us. We only have a few more episodes left. It has been a very interesting show. But I do want to mention something that is very interesting that you sent me. You sent me a link for a, and I don't know if hello Joseph Wyatt, how are you? Says, how about Everything Everywhere winning the PGA last night? Huge bump for Oscar chances. Yes, that is wonderful. I did not know that, Joseph Wyatt. I think everybody was expecting Michelle Yeoh to win the BAFTA. And I don't believe she got it. I can't remember just now. Maybe someone remembers. But yes, Nathan, that is coming up. It's going to be fun to see that episode. I'm not going to be watching it tonight. As I said, everybody's going to be tomorrow night at 9 because I'm doing the SAG Awards. But yes, Tom Junior Jackson, subscribe to Tom Junior Jackson's YouTube channel, everybody. Tom has his own YouTube channel where he does reviews. So please do check it out, like and subscribe. We are all good people, Tom. And thank you for your support and everything you do. Yeah, I didn't watch that last night, Joseph. I couldn't watch it because as I said, I was at a wound care.
You were in the hospital, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
With your mum.
Yeah, and yeah, she's something else. But regardless of that, I did want to say, yes, Nathan, the SAG Awards will be fire tonight. It's going to be so much fun. I hope you guys get a chance to check it out. We're going to be checking it out here. Of course, we're going to be looking at how everybody is dressed. So don't be too, upset with us. We're going to be talking about clothes and all that stuff. Tom Junior Jackson does talk about her being at the PGAs and the Annies as well.
What's the Annies?
I can't remember. But there's a bunch of shows like that. Yeah, Michelle lost the BAFTA to Kate Blanchett for Tar. That's right, Retro Nerd Girl. That is correct. And I think everybody was expecting Michelle Yeoh to win. So let's see who wins. Gary Bando's sandwich. And thank you, John Ware Jr. Thank you. Mummy is doing well. Her wound is, animation awards. Thank you, Tom Jr. Jackson.
Thank you, Tom. That completely makes sense. So maybe there's going to be one about maybe your Dungeons and Dragons show will win. I forget, Ex Machina, is that it?
Yeah, Vox Machina. And hello, Jamin D. How are you, bro?
Hey, dude.
Good to see you, Jamin D. So good to see all of you guys. A lot of you have been showing up to my live streams for my Hogwarts Legacy games. And so this leads into, Russ.
Oh, what a segue. You are such a pro. Look at that. Effortlessly transitioning from the from the intros and the hellos into the first topic of today. Go on ahead.
And thank you so much, Nathan. I so appreciate that. And she says hello to everybody who is so kind to give her best wishes like you have, Nathan, and all of you in the chat and everybody in the channels here on the PGS everywhere. Thank you so much for being so kind to Mummy. She is constantly asking about all of you and wondering where you guys are, meaning, where you're located. So it is wonderful to kind of see her respond to, you all as things go on. But I did just want to mention, yes, Hogwarts Legacy. And I'm actually going to show some of my gameplay. I'm not actually going to show it because, as you guys know, I play this game and I enjoy it immensely, and you can see me playing, and it's just wonderful to be able to play this game. I can show some of my own video on my own channel. Like, this is so cool.
How cool is this?
So this is Hogwarts Legacy, the game. And I'm showing, yeah, in this particular case, I had just gotten a certain spell, and you can see by the look on my face in the video how happy I am. From what people have told me, you look so happy playing this game. And thank you, Gary Vando Sandwich Worthington. My mother's one happiness is that she doesn't have to sit there while I'm playing this game for hours and hours and hours and wondering, well, what's going on? I can't hear anything. I'm like, well, I'm wearing the headset, Mom. And she's like, well, you don't have to wear the headset. I want to hear what's going on too. So, but Russ, I have to tell you, what they did with this game was to create an open world Hogwarts game where you are a fifth year student and you get an owl. I don't know. I know you said you don't necessarily watch this, but you get an owl and you get to attend Hogwarts as a fifth year student. And there I am. That's me. That's my avatar. And I am a student at Hogwarts. Russ, I never knew going back to school would be this cool, Russ.
Well, you get going for school for magic. I mean, that's what's not to love about that.
It is the most amazing thing ever, Russ. I'm enjoying it.
It
I'm
looks
having
beautiful. I mean, like I say, I'm not much of a gamer, but it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm having such a great time with it. I to be honest with you, it's been so wonderful going on all these different adventures. And I kind of skipped ahead a little bit because that was, this is me. I'm in a shop and I have to go and get different things. I have to search for items. Russ, there's so many layers in this game with 5 different levels. You can go to Hogsmeade. You can run around the castle. You can interact with other people, go on quests, side quests. You cast spells. I think they did a statistic, Russ, where they said it was something like, I don't know how many millions of spells have been cast. And from Hogwarts Legacy. But we do know, Russ, that the game has made almost $1 billion, right?
Yes, yeah, you sent me the Variety article that was talking about that. So it seems like it's not slowing down, and has been often prophesized. The 20th century was the movie era, movie and television. It seems like the 21st century is, I mean, films can only sort of dream of making this money for this much investment. I mean, I wonder how much this game cost to make compared to how much it's going to make in terms of pure profit.
I think they said it was around 120 million, guys. I don't have the article in front of me because I'm more watching the gameplay, because I even am obsessed with my own gameplay, and I've watched other people's gameplay, and it becomes such an enjoyable thing. And I do want to say hello to Bonzo Kilborn. Hello, Bonzo Kilborn. How are you? I hope you are well today, Bonzo. Such a pleasure. Speaking of how much Hogwarts we play, do you still have a job? Yes, and of course I play outside of business hours. Just like the way I stream is always outside of normal business hours, which is essentially, let's say 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Thursday. I don't stream and I don't play this game, but the rest of the time I can play the game. So sometimes I'll play late night, and God bless him. God bless you, Tom Jr. Jackson, for moderating and being on some of these streams where I'm playing. And it's really long. Like, it's not sort of, sometimes I'm playing for a little bit longer than what I think I would normally be playing for. But even here, I just want to show some of the graphics, and I don't even know if it's showing up well. But Russ, the level of quality that you get in this game is exactly the type of thing that you are expecting from a game, from an IP of this age. Is a 15-year IP. And despite, let's say, pushback and resistance. And thank you, Joseph Wyatt, who got that stat for me.
Yeah,
Says
nice one, Joseph.
it cost $150 million to make. But guys, I have to be honest with you, Russ, this looks like it cost a lot more to make. It's so incredibly done. It's so well crafted. It's easy to use. And I know, listen, I am not the best gamer. You guys, I have the proof of it. I've got 20 live streams, Russ, where you can see me fumbling and falling and doing all sorts of crazy stuff and going to the wrong place and not being able to figure out how to solve problems. I am that person. That's me. And I am loving it. So I did just want to encourage people who do want to play. You don't have to like it, yes, thank you, Tom Jr. Jackson. 5 years in the making, 150 million. It's less than a lot of movies these days. But you know something, Russ? I'm getting so much enjoyment out of playing this game. I really am just having such a good time. And Russ, this is what games are supposed to be, which is why it is disappointing to see the resistance towards the game, because of the lady who started it all, Rolling, this woman who's a genius. She's a genius, in my opinion. And so I'm not knocking anybody who doesn't like her. You know, that's your choice. But I love her and I love what she's created. And she didn't really have anything to do with the game, from what I've been told. I don't know all the details. But Russ, you cannot ignore the popularity of this game, making close to $1 billion, Russ. And it hasn't even been released across all platforms, Russ.
Wow.
Once it gets released on the PlayStation 4, they're predicting that it's going to double the amount of money it makes for whatever reason. I don't know the reason,
Well, they're
but
great. I mean, the PlayStation's great. I had a PlayStation 3 for the longest time, and it was reliable. Basically used it as like a TV box, so I had YouTube and Amazon and Netflix and everything like that on it. But in the end, it I stopped using it because they stopped updating for it. But the box itself was absolutely fine. So I imagine that there's like millions upon millions of legacy PS4s still on the on the street, so to speak. So yeah, absolutely, it's going to be huge.
I mean,
Although
yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
um, there's a certain segment that doesn't want this game to be huge, and there's been some controversy around this. I sent you an article about a certain group of people that have set up a website to sort of name and shame YouTubers that, or Twitch, I should say Twitch streamers that are using this game, right?
Yes.
Did you get a chance to read it?
Um, I did. And what I was going to say is that their desire to pull down the popularity of the game has actually bolstered the game, because some gamers, I'm not a gamer journalist. I'm an
Hmm.
EDM journalist, Russ. So
Hmm.
I know what I'm doing when it, or how to report when it comes to EDM. But if I were to review a game, I wouldn't know how to do it. And I'd have to look up how to, what points to make and things like that. So if for as a gaming journalist, so to speak, some gaming journalists are saying that the resistance, the pushback against the game has given it a bolstered amount of advertising. Now, there was already millions and millions of fans on the Wizarding World website,
Hmm.
millions and millions of fans who grew up with this. Thank you, Darth Plato. Thank you. There was already millions and millions of fans on the Wizarding World site, so that even if just those fans played the game, it would have been a success, Russ. It would have been a financial success. What's interesting about this is now that everybody's hearing about it, and not only are they hearing about it, once they see it, they're like, gee, that's kind of a nice looking game. Maybe I should get that for my kids. Maybe I should get that for myself.
Hmm.
You talked about being a kidult. I am a kidult, and I bought this for myself. I didn't buy it for anybody else other than myself. Did I know this game was going to be this fantastic? No, I had no idea. Electronic dance music, Bonzo Kilborn. Electronic dance music. So yeah, electronic dance music is what I used to report on. But my point is, and just kind of looking at this from this point of view, it's very interesting, Russ. Joseph White says the people who wanted to cancel people for even playing this game failed miserably. Hogwarts Legacy broke the record for concurrent viewers in Twitch history. Joseph, what is the number? I'm sorry, Russ. It did say it on there, didn't it?
Hmm.
What was the what I don't know the number, but also, Joseph, it not only broke it on Twitch, but in Steam it set records, which is another kind of platform where you can kind of rent games and play on your personal computers and everything. Like, it's unbelievable. Nathan says John Campea reported that Warner Brothers is thinking about a possible HBO Max series production.
Cool,
Yeah,
keep milking it. Absolutely, absolutely. Why not? I mean, this proves, above all else, that there's still money in the Hogwarts Harry Potter brand, if not the Fantastic Beasts legacy or prequel movies, if you like. They haven't done as well, no matter how many stars they seem to throw at them. They haven't seemed to have had the cultural impact of Harry Potter. However, this one, this game here seems to, well, it's actual proof that there is a big market for present day era or current day era Harry Potter, right? That's what people want to see.
yeah, and I also do, and I was speaking to Lorena and Retro Nerd Girl about the popularity of just even the Wizarding World, and it is something that is uniquely English. It's an English cultural wizarding, franchise.
Hmm.
and it maintains this culturally English part in the story while still bringing in international people. There's a transgender person in here. Like, they really do exactly what you would expect the game to do. However, it is there, it's located in England, and they don't lose that, Russ. It still has the cultural importance of, being in England, having things that are very much British, so to speak. So
Hmm.
I did want to mention that, and that is also the appeal, because that's also why we enjoy Harry Potter, because it is English. A lot of people like myself are Anglophiles, and we enjoy seeing that, and it is pretty apparent in the game as well. So I did want to mention that too. And the Hidden says good morning to everyone.
The hidden is revealed.
Absolutely. Stubble says, "Hey, gang, a bit late for the stream today. No worries, Stubble. You are always right on time." And I did enjoy the Vox Machina lyrics to that, Stubble. Stubble and I are going to be reviewing Wheel of Time, the second season. And we're going to do our wrap up, or kind of like a redo of season one of the Wheel of Time pretty darn soon. Guys, Robert's going to have a Physical Media Guru, his show, Let's Get Physical Media with Dieter, at 2 p.m. on the Burnettwork, guys. Dark Widow says, hilarious listening to the story. So the Sans Culotte strategy is failing. Not only is it failing tremendously, people were saying, yeah, here's my name, put it on the list twice.
Wow.
People were getting snarky. People who don't normally get snarky. I think it is something. Thank you, Joseph Wyatt, for that. Guys, 1.28 million viewers on Twitch at launch. Russ, do you realize how big that is? That might even be maybe more than half of the Twitch platform, Russ.
Wow. That's a lot.
You
But
know,
I think it just goes to show that this sort of website that's been set up to sort of name and shame the people that are playing this game. I think we've spoken about this, a lot, and I think the drinker also sort of did a video about this, as as what is woke and what is not woke, and all that kind of thing. But I think that sort of like offense culture and cancel culture, this almost felt to me, this is why I sent you the article, it almost felt to me that, like, this might be one of the last gasps of that sort of thing, that this has backfired spectacularly on the people that have set out to name and shame Twitch streamers that have had the temerity to play this game, because the offense and it's a bit like the Gina Carano situation with J.K. Rowling. The whole thing was nonsense. It was just not, this person is obviously not an anti anything. They just simply made a statement. They've even got a transgender person in this game. It is not anti anything. It's as inclusive as, it's inclusive as the next thing. And this sort of like faux sense of moral outrage that this woman needs to be cancelled and blah blah blah. It's just entirely ridiculous. And I've always thought that this sort of behavior is ridiculous. And now it seems that the people, the people, as opposed to, or the general audience, is now starting to latch onto this, thinking, no, this is just silly. And I'm kind of hoping that we're coming to an end of this cycle of, frankly, lunacy. This whole thing with J.K. Rowling was just ridiculous from the start. I mean, she's more left than Left Jack McLeft, winner of last year's Mr. Left competition. I mean, she's absolutely, she's a bona fide, wokey, if you want to call it that. And for those people to sort of turn around and try to make out that she was sort of anti or a hate speech person against a certain community, is just lashing out at someone for the sake of lashing out at someone, and a sort of false sense of, like I said, same with Gina Carano, this precious false sense of moral outrage, which they don't care about. I've always said this. They just move on to the next thing. Once they've destroyed something that people love, they'll just go on to the next thing and the next thing. And it seems like people are now saying, well, no, I don't care what you think about me. I'm going to play it. And the proof here now is in the pudding. I guess it's on its way to being the biggest game of all time. But I don't know. As I say, I'm not a gamer, but it sounds like $2 billion is a lot.
Yes, it's around $895 million so far. And I do want to thank the Memes of Destruction. Good morning to you. Says, hey friends, say what you're saying is legalized dueling. Let consenting adults engage in mortal combat under the doctrine of bodily autonomy. Peace, love. Thank you so much. Means of Destruction. Good morning to you. Thank you for the 4.99 super chat. We so appreciate the generosity here on the channel. Um, and I got to say, guys, I do appreciate you, those of you, many of you who are actually in the stream right now, who watch me playing this game. And even though I'm not perfect, and you can see me eating during the game, like I'm eating snacks and, just kind of like really enjoying this thing. And I do read your comments, just like what do I do here on the show. It's been so much fun to listen to everybody's comments. For example, here, Gary says that he doesn't play any games, but loves watching his web buddies do it for hours. And that's fine too. It's entertaining if you can watch it. Over 1 million people on Twitch at launch. Tom Jr. Jackson says that Legacy 2 is already being teased as well. Definitely. Also, Steam has 850,000 concurrent players, second most played single player game in Steam history. Probably the first might have been something like Call of Duty,
Yeah,
or
probably.
maybe Fortnite or something like that. Oh, thank you, Dark Plato. More Anglo-Saxon than British. It's set in 1890. It's just such a wonderful thing. And you know what, JK, she actually did something that I really thought was interesting, was that what she did was she used a spreadsheet, I guess, and I've told you this before, Russ, of how she created the world. And yes, Retro Nerd Girl and I are going to be here tonight watching the SAG Awards. So do check that out. She actually shared the spreadsheet, Russ.
I did
And
not
I
know
thought
this.
that was interesting because she didn't have to do that, Russ. She didn't have to do anything like that. But I thought that she did that because she wanted to encourage other creators. Because sometimes when you're a creator or a writer and you see somebody else say, well, this is how I did it, you could kind of go ahead and use that as a template or an inspiration for doing your own series. And we've often heard people say, well, I was influenced by this series. Well, gee, how could you not be influenced by Hogwarts in general, by the wizarding world in general? Certainly it is a fun and enjoyable and adventurous, and there's danger and excitement and involved in it. So you can see all the different adventures I'm having there. I even have the hairstyle that I always wanted to wear with my avatar, which is like a bob that kind of comes down. But I can't do that with my hair for a number of different reasons. But that's not so important. The important thing, Russ, is that I am having a ball playing this game. And every time I step on to play the game, I'm just like, I can't believe I'm in there. I almost want them to do, does anybody know if there's a VR version of this? Because I'd love to do a virtual reality and just feel like I'm literally in this game. I think that this game is really going to, not that it needed it, not that the wizarding world needed it, but I think that it's propelled the wizarding world past the gaming influence it had before, because I've played other Harry Potter video games and they were not like this. This is maybe the best Harry Potter video game they've ever made, maybe one of the best games I've ever played. And I'm only playing it on the easy level. So there's that. Darth Plato says, in 2020, I saw message boards in UC Berkeley who were gushing about how wonderful it was that the USA. Oh, well, I don't know about that, but
There's a lot of that. I mean, I've heard a lot of discussions about that sort of thing, and I've always, the question always is, okay, well, we want to tear down the edifices of Western civilization. We want to tear down everything to do with everything. We want to upturn everything and get rid of the status quo. And my question is, to replace it with what? And no
I
one
don't
ever
know.
seems to, no one ever seems to have it. Even if you speak to one of these people that want to tear everything down, and replace it with what precisely? Something better. And that would be what precisely? How are you going to build something up from complete and utter anarchy? Because that's what you're essentially espousing here. You want to defund the police, you want to defund the army, you want to get rid of all of this stuff, get rid of government, get rid of this. Then you've got complete, it's essentially The Last of Us but without clickers, right? So it's just ridiculous. And I really do think we are starting to come to the end of this nonsense now. And I often think it's been going on for like, what, 8, 9, 10 years, something like that. And I just think the sort of progenitors and the sort of uber offended people, the sort of caped crusaders that want to cancel it and all the rest of it. I think in the 10 years from since when all of this nonsense sort of started, those people are now sort of 10 years older and realizing, oh shit, no, I actually have to do, I have to get a job and I have to become a member of society. And oh, everything I was espousing when I was a teenager is absolute nonsense because this is what the real world's actually like. And I think that might be may have something to do with it. I don't know. That's literally my my hot take off the top of my head, but that's what I kind of think.
Yeah, Music Discussion says it looks like Skyrim and Harry Potter. Certainly, I'm not going to say this is true or not true, but for me, I think Skyrim might be more difficult. I'm playing on super, super, super easy mode, like the easiest mode they have. So yes, you're probably right. Means of Destruction. What I do know is that it's so much fun. Looking at the grounds, going to Hogsmeade. I went into, where I went into the forbidden section in the library, and I also went into the forest that we're not supposed to go into. I can't remember. Forbidden Forest. I can't remember. I went into the Forbidden Forest. I've been like running around at night. It's just so much fun. It's just so much fun. And I have to say that I am so grateful to the team. And I had said I didn't know who it was who really designed it. And there is a team that designed the game. And they've done such an incredible job. And Russ, I just did one. I'm going to take my gameplay off the screen now and stop sharing it because God knows you guys have seen so much of this gameplay of mine. God bless you for putting up with so many hours and hours and hours of it with me, like, as I'm playing. But Russ, I think it is really interesting. Maybe this is, and the other thing that I was going to say is that I noticed that the other thing that's happening is JK is telling people that if you continue to go ahead and libel me, I will sue you. And she's doing it. And the BBC had to apologize twice because I guess some of their staff reporters had made comments calling her things that were, not true. And she called them out and they had to apologize. And now whenever they make an article that has a differing opinion, they have to say it's an opinion piece. It's not a fact anymore. And so I think
this is something that's quite controversial. I don't know if there's any British people in the chat at the moment, but it's not a huge news item or anything like that, but it's low key been rumbling on for a number of years now that people are starting to stopping to pay their television license. So you have to have a television license in England by law if you've got a TV. There are certain routes around it, but essentially you should be paying a TV license if you've got a television in the house, unless you can prove that you're only using it for streaming, which most people can't. However, the problem with the BBC is its intent was to sort of inform, educate, and entertain, and it's a state broadcasting company, and it is supposed to be completely unbiased. It's just here is the news: X amount of people did this today in London. Let us say, and it's not that. It's gone so far politically in one direction. So I'm just trying to think of anything. Like, let's talk about masks, anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers. So what they should say is a bunch of people went into London today and protested about vaccines and masks, and this and there was trouble and this many people got arrested, or there wasn't trouble and it was all complete, whatever but what you would get was these really loaded, evil anti-vax, but people in denying of reality, storm London. It's just all this, but it's all completely from one political perspective. Their journalists are all attacking the other side from one political perspective, and that's fine if you're CNN, because you're CNN and you're a commercial company and people are paying to watch, but not for the BBC. So there's a big movement now in the United Kingdom. People have just stopped paying their license fees because it's not on. And ironically, we have this little channel here called GB News, which sort of started off, and again, it was attacked roundly as being, extreme right by the press, and they tried to get it to be shut down. And now it's one of the fastest growing and biggest news companies in the country. And it's not especially right wing. I'd say it might be centre right, maybe not even that, but they do have people from both sides of it, and there's really sort of spin on it. So they'll there is spin on it, but they'll have people from the opposing point of view. So they'll spin it this way, but then you'll get somebody saying, well, no, that's actually not the case. and people are, that's what they want. They want to know a balanced opinion, and the BBC is not providing that anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame, Russ, that of what's been happening and how it's affected um, essentially the news and the quality of the news.
Hmm.
And, you know, of course, there used to be this Fair Reporting Act in the United States that existed prior to 1990. I could be wrong about the name of it and the exact date. But what it said was that when you were giving a view of something, you had to also state the opposing views in an
Mm.
article or in a report. And so, you know, as a reporter, you were forced to do this, and it was kind of overturned. It was actually rejected here in the US. And ever since then, we've kind of had very somewhat more biased views. Um, in two senses: one, not reporting the other side, and two, not saying that they are biased. Some of the news outlets I listen to admit, they say, yes, we are biased in this direction,
Yeah.
and they let you know in the beginning. It's like, you're like, wow, okay, you admit you're biased, fine, you know, that's cool. But to pretend that your view is everyone's view is just not reality. You know, that's something that I think is very interesting for
Well,
news.
I think what's more sinister here, and I don't know if they do it, and they can't do it there, but certainly here they just don't report on things that the agenda du jour doesn't want getting out. So, for example, the lockdown process that I spoke about were hardly reported. What At the same time, there were certain other protests that were going on in the country that were sparked by events in the United States, you know, uh, which there were riots over and stuff like that. But here, they were reporting on that, on those sort of mimicry protests, but no, they weren't really reporting on the other ones. And if they were, if it was anti-lockdown or anti-vax or something like that, they were always framed as far right extremists, and it was always like a few far right extreme. And of course, there were hundreds of thousands of people on these demonstrations, and they're refusing to report on them. It's the same as we have a thing in Oxford now, in the United Kingdom, Oxford and Canterbury, called the 15-minute city, which they're trialing. And what they're doing is they're putting up loads and loads and loads and loads of cameras everywhere, with the idea that you're not allowed to drive anywhere outside a 15-minute radius of your
Oh,
address.
yes, I saw that. It's happening in Oxford, right?
Oxford and Canterbury, right? And there are mass protests, like people just, this is a step too far. It really is. This is like literally, we are not living in the Soviet Union. I don't want to get in my car and have to go to see my granddad, my stepfather, and be asked for my papers, which is essentially what they're trying to bring in. But they won't report on it. It's kind of like, and if they do, if you look up any article about it, it's the greatest thing ever, and it's going to help stimulate, like, it's just not fair reporting. This should be all over the news. People don't want this. They are protesting against it, but they won't cover it. Yes, and Nathan Trujillo here says both of you are absolutely right on the news bias and not reporting. It does give fuel to conspiracy theories. Well, I think the thing about that is, back in the day, 3 years ago, all of the things that these conspiracy theorists were saying, or some of these things they were saying, have actually come to pass. So I think there needs to be balance sort of brought back into it, really. But that's just one example of what the BBC is not doing.
Yeah, exactly, guys. And thank you so much for your comments. Bonzo says George Orwell coming at you, and Means of Destruction says no papers. To be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you, I kind of miss that we don't have hard copy papers and magazines. I'm not saying that we have to have a bazillion of them, but I do kind of miss that. I have a sense, I guess I have a sense of nostalgia. Dino Dinosaur says fairness doctrine policy that required the whole. Yes, that's what it was, Dino Dinosaur. Thank you so much. Says the fairness doctrine policy that required the holders of broadcast licenses both to present controversial issues of public importance and do so in a manner that fairly reflected differing viewpoints. Yes, that's what it was called. Dino Dinosaur. I wonder
Yeah, but
why
it doesn't.
anybody would do away with that.
It doesn't go that way anymore. And what I've found is, anybody that goes against the prevailing narrative, whatever that narrative happens to be, back in the days of the unspecified virus of unknown origin, right? If you dared to sort of say, well, hang on a minute, aren't we going a bit? Aren't these lockdowns a bit too? Isn't this a bit too far? You were always branded far right. That was always the opening salvo. Far right conspiracy theorists say, members of the far right, and it's almost like, as we've said many times on different, and I've heard this done. When they compare people to the party that was running around in Germany in the 30s, they keep using that word, or they keep using a word to describe someone who might be prejudiced against people who have skin of a different color and all that kind of thing. They throw these terms around so much now that they have really lost all meaning. Those are very serious. That's a very serious accusation to
Yes.
level at a bunch of ex-soldiers, housewives, and office workers that have gone to London to protest against something that they disagree with, and you've instantly lumped them in with the same people that are running around in Berlin and all that kind of thing. It's repulsive. It's absolutely repulsive. But that's
And
that's
it's
the language, and they're diluting our language. They are robbing these words of meaning, because those really are hateful words. It's not something you should be throwing around at someone just because they don't happen to agree with you on a minor political point. It's absurd.
And we already know that the nature of politics is to have discord. So if you're not a debater and you're not in the debating team, and you can't go ahead and defend both sides, then it's going to be difficult for you.
Hmm.
As a politician, you should be able to defend both sides if that's what you want to do equally. You just happen to be a particular party that has that side right now, but 10 years from now, your party might go ahead and agree with it. So, sides can shift, views can shift.
Yeah.
The idea is that can you effectively defend it, whether it's in your favor or not at the time. So there really isn't, in a lot of cases, especially our political system here in the US, where many of these guys went to the same schools, their kids are married to one another, they go to dinner together, despite regardless of party, they're a lot closer than they appear to be. They're just fighting over funds, really.
Hmm.
That's what this whole fight is about. As far as I can see, the bills are always about funding, and really nothing too much more, because even the laws that look controversial or focused on, social issues always have a dollar value at the end, Russ. Dine Papierian. Thank you, Darth Plato. Something that I think is also very interesting is putting things in context. And so now, because they've chosen to take words and try to recontextualize the meaning, now when you use a specific word, now I have no choice but to say, well, if you mean this word in this context, that's what I'm referring to.
Hmm.
And now you have to go ahead and you can kind of keep or understand what the person means, especially when a word is overused and it may appear to be something that doesn't have the same meaning anymore. I have to constantly do it with research papers, because different people will go ahead and use the same word for, let's say, molecular evolution. And I have to say, well, if it's in the context of such and such, molecular evolution is such and such. So
Hmm.
now, in order for it to make sense to anybody, I have to go ahead and put the context there before I even begin to talk about it, or else it gets lost. It may not have any meaning in general, but when I go ahead and put the context in it, it does. So, and that's what the paper should be doing. And I think they used to do stuff like that. They used to do that. They didn't assume that you knew everything about a topic. They would kind of give you an introduction or something to put it into context for you, before they would even get into what it was going to mean in that article. So
But I just think there was balance, wasn't there? I mean, if we take two newspapers in the United Kingdom, which are the red top tabloids, you had the Daily Mirror, you knew that was left leaning. You had the Sun or the Express, you knew they were right leaning. You knew what you were picking up when you were buying them. But now there doesn't seem to be anything that's the other way at all. Apart from this one channel, which is called GB News, which they, as I said, they tried to castigate again as something that was, would have been supported by the people in Berlin all those time ago. What's Outcast saying?
Well, the Outcast says, afternoon, guys. Hi. Hi, Lance. Well, I'm just back from an actual Sunday lunch with actor Phil Davis, who Russ will know just resigned from his BAFTA membership because of the debacle that was the award show. And I know that a lot of people were very upset with how the BAFTAs were handled. Of course, on our end, we got
Why?
2 hours of it. We don't really know what happened.
Why?
But according to Lance, there was a lot of unusual things that happened this year.
Well, like what? I, I,
There
I
was
I'm not caught up with the gossip and the Parley about the BAFTAs at all.
Well, I can tell you this much. There was the winner of the best picture for the BAFTAs, many of you know, is All Quiet on the Western Front.
Hmm.
And I have done a review with Darth Plato with that. I did a watch party with Lance on the Burnettwork for that. And one interesting thing about it was that the woman who won, the woman who's behind it, her name is Patterson. Apparently, her speech was cut short. And everybody was very upset about this, that the best picture person would, you wouldn't be able to say everything you wanted to. She spent so many years trying to get that film made. And
Mm,
certainly it is an impressive film.
mm.
But I think, Lance, are you joining us tonight? I think I did send you the link for the SAG Awards here for Positive Fandom. Certainly, certainly, Lance, it's going to be a pleasure to see you here on Positive Fandom during the awards review that we're doing. And I do have this article up about how to watch the SAGs for some of you guys if you want to watch it. There is a live stream, and it's going to take place tonight at 8, but we're going to start at 7 because we're going to be looking at clothes. So it's the truth. Um, it says it will be live streamed on Netflix's YouTube channel. So guys, it's going to be available to anybody to watch. We probably will be watching it there. This might be the link, and or maybe the people who were nominated, and we'll primarily be watching it on Twitter because it felt like everything on there was great. But I did just want to mention that to you guys, that we're going to be doing that tonight here on Positive Fandom, because we love award ceremonies and we like people getting dressed up. So there, I said it. It's the truth.
iPhone charged to 90%.
And my iPhone is charged to 90%. So
Thanks for sharing, iPhone.
yes. And yes, Bonzo Kilborn says EDM and molecular evolution, Positive Fandom, you do it all. Oh, thanks so much, Bonzo Kilborn. Yeah. The Outcast says that several of the speeches for the smaller awards being cut from the show. Also, they left Bernard Cribbins out of the memorial. You
Oh,
did
Bernard
mention that
Cribbins.
to
My
me.
God, do you know, as you get older and the people from your childhood start to sort of go, like, bloody hell, Bernard Cribbins, man, he was just always on TV when I was a little kid, Jack and Ori and all these kind of shows. Shit, I didn't know.
Well, unfortunately, he has passed away, and he wasn't in the memorial. And it's unfortunate that this is happening. And Darth Plato says, well, did it happen before time? What's the story? Um, Nathan says, you and Russ should do a for your consideration episode of who you two think the Oscars will win. Yeah, I'd love to do that, Russ, if you want to do
Do you
it.
know that's kind of funny, because it leads me to another thought, Nathan, which I was going to ask you about, actually. So last week, right at the end of the show, somebody asked, "What are you doing about Picard season 3?" And I said, not interested. And I wanted to clarify that I'm not interested because of seasons 1 and 2. It's just I'm not a huge Trekkie. I never have been. Like, my sort of Star Trek really was watching the original series on the telly, a little bit of the Next Generation, and certainly I love the movies. I really love the Captain Kirk, Star Trek, the slow motion picture, Star Trek Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and all that. I really, really love that. I did watch the first couple of episodes of Picard season 1, and there was so many callbacks and little things that I felt was in there for many Trekkies. Like, I think he was in a room and he was looking at all old little statues of the Enterprise and stuff like that. However, people on YouTube who I really concur with most of the time are really, really singing the praises of the show. And one of them said, you don't have to have seen seasons 1 and 2 to actually enjoy this. So I may actually sort of tune in and watch Captain Picard season 3 if when I get through Spartacus, because Spartacus is oh God, it's so good. And like I said, I'm really interested to see what happens after, post Andy Whitfield, and see what this new guy is like. But what's Bonzo saying? He hopes everyone relaxes because people in charge know what's best for us. Don't resist. You will like it. Yeah. And, soon you will own nothing and be happy. Right.
Yes, and Nathan says, I haven't watched seasons 1 or 2 of Picard, but watching 3 because of Robert Meyer Burnett, and I think it's really good so far.
Well, that's right. This is it.
Absolutely.
This is what the drinker was saying, wasn't it? He did a stream, didn't he, with Robert and the Irish fella who's computing forever, Dave Cullen, and Gary. And the one thing they kept saying over and over and over again was, you know, I can understand the point of view of not hate watching this. Like, you have been so burned and you have watched this thing that you have loved since childhood, whatever, being completely torched. Why would you give it a second chance? And their answer is, well, if you don't give it a second chance, then they're just going to, if you don't support the things that they're doing well, then they're just going to keep making the things that you think are crap, right? Which is kind of like one of the big, one of the big things about Star Wars, right? Everyone was so burned by Star Wars and the shit show that they've been handing us. You know, Mandalorian aside, which you by your own admission, our rumor said it's an okay show. It's just everything else at that time was so bad. It was like the greatest thing ever. But nobody tuned in to watch Andor. So that's sort of like saying, well, people want more stuff like Mandalorian. They're not interested in stuff like Andor. So again, this sort of Picard thing, maybe it is something that Star Trek fans should get behind. You know?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I liked Andor better than The Mandalorian. I think it was a better show.
Oh God, it
for
was
me.
in all ways, right?
Yeah. And of course, the Outcast creative talks about season 3 of Picard. He also loves Spartacus and wants to do a stream about that, Russ.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to.
So that should be coming up and will be very interesting. Memes of Destruction says, I set up a training post in my backyard and got training Gladdy after watching it. Wow.
Get to the palace. Get to the palace. Means of destruction. A nice use of the plural Latin there.
And says Outcast agree. And Dino Dinosaur says, Autumn and Russ, did you both watch Rome? And the answer is yes.
100%.
Yes.
My friend that's sharing with me at the moment, MJ, she's over from Canada, as I say. We were tossing up between Rome and Spartacus, and I turned around and said, well, I've already watched Gods of the Arena the other week. So it's like, okay, well then we'll roll on to Spartacus, because she only watched that recently as well.
Yeah, I love Rome. I felt that Rome was very timely at the time it came out, which is about 10 years ago, right, Russ?
It was right. It was one of the first ones we had in the United Kingdom. It was a BBC HBO production, I think, and it was the first time I can honestly remember. Now I could be wrong, but this is the first time I remember of the violence and the sex, like the full frontal nudity was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It was really shocking back then. And like I said so many times, I remember the first shot of Polly Walker just coming out of the bath, and it was like, wow, okay, this is what we're in for. Yeah, it was really good. Unfortunately for Rome, the second season was not great because they had to sort of wrap it all up very, very quickly. I think it was planned for 3 or 5 seasons or something like that. Then they found out that their funding was getting pulled and they had to kind of wrap it up double quick in the last season. And because of that, it feels a lot less it feels very jerky, and it's kind of like 6 months later, 2 years later, 5 years later, whichever it happened to be. It didn't feel as coherent.
Rome really, I thought that was, once I saw that show, I thought, we're really in for a treat in television, and when it comes to maturity and adult programming, and HBO had done it before with Dream On. I mean, it's certainly not Rome, but that show where they kind of featured adult humor and nudity in a realistic way. People have to take their clothes off. This is this is the reality of something. We don't have to show couples in a room with 2 double beds going to sleep at night. Like, we don't have to do that anymore. We've gone beyond that. After all, this is kind of the Skinamax group, HBO showing skin. I mean, we were expecting some sort of evolution going beyond the year 2000, if you will. And I think Rome certainly was indicative of that, at least for me. Joseph Wyatt says, Andor was great.
It really was. It really was.
Yeah, I enjoyed it so much, Joseph. I really do believe it was the best, and the production value alone was spectacular as far as I'm concerned. In Andor, maybe their best of all of the Star Wars productions, Disney Star Wars productions so far. Andor has the greatest one, in my opinion. Darth Plato says, I favored Rome over Spartacus. Very well, Darth Plato.
I'm not sure I did. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm going to watch Rome. And I remember I really liked the opening sort of battle sequence, and I thought it was really neat how they were using the whistle to sort of rotate the front lines and all that sort of thing. I remember really liking it. But I think Spartacus is more my speed. To be honest with you, I'm absolutely loving it.
Well, the Outcast Creative says you can visit the set of Rome in Cinecittà Film Studios in Rome, Italy. Part of the set burned down, but the main set of the city is still there and has been used in Doctor Who. Well, thank you, Outcast Creative. Nathan says Happy Mandalorian Andor is a good mix of Star Wars. It's like having popcorn and candy at a theater, then going to Ruth's Chris for a nice steak. Yeah, I think you're right, Nathan.
It is. Yeah, there's room
And
for both, isn't there? There is room for both. Oh,
and
we
I
lost you. No, you're still there. Yeah, there's definitely room for both. Both styles. I do like the Mandalorian, as I say, but I'm not particularly. It's coming out soon, isn't it? I'm not particularly like.
It's coming
Oh my
out
god!
on Wednesday, Russ, and I'm doing a live watch party right here on Positive Fandom, Russ.
Right. Well, you see, I'm not having that particular reaction to it. Like, yes, of course I'll watch it, but I'm not like, oh yeah, it's great. I'll watch the Mandalorian. But however,
Well,
when
I am.
I know you are because Grogu's going to be back. But like for me, it's just like, oh great. Well, of course I'll watch it. But however, Andor, I can't wait. Can't fucking wait. I really want to see what happens to those guys. So yeah.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm meeting, well, I guess I could say this here. As you guys know, I'm going to London, Russ. I'm going to see you in a few weeks. I am going to be going to Star Wars Celebration. And guess who I am going to be getting an autograph from and a picture with at Star Wars Celebration?
Who? Pedro Pascal?
No, I didn't see his name as being available yet. So maybe they'll announce it. But Andy Serkis.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was so impressed with his performance in Andor. And so I knew that if there was availability for signing and taking a photograph, I absolutely had to meet him because he just did such an impressive job. He made that prison, Russ, just absolutely, feel the intensity of what he's a great actor. He's really impressive. And he did the Planet of the Apes as well, which I'm a huge fan of. I can't. I'm so excited to meet him. I think he was one of the most important characters in Andor, as far as I'm concerned. There,
he was fantastic.
Yeah. John Ware, I think he has watched Red Shoe Diaries or Love Spirit. I think we've all watched those Skinamax shows that
we used to have them maybe really late at night, like on ITV or something like that. What I meant, John Ware Jr., was it was the first time it was a big deal. I think it came was on BBC Two at like 9 o'clock, and certainly it was the first time I'd seen something like that. Now, maybe there were ones before. I'm sure I've seen the Red Shoe Diaries, but they were on like midnight or whatever on ITV or something like that. But I remember that was really shocking. The sort of first time, it was great, but I was like, oh. So yeah.
And Bonzo says that he prefers Mandalorian. He with of course Carl and Gina, who of course you can't beat Carl Weathers, Gina Carano and Bill Burr, and was better than Andor at its best. Darth Plato says Rome season 1 covered 9 years and season 2 covered 17. That's a lot of years to cover in a season. Joseph Riot says somehow Spartacus was even hornier than Rome.
Oh my God, Gods of the Spartacus season 1, the first one. Then they made the prequel, Gods of the Arena. My God, that was just it was hornier than Strike Back. I mean, it was just like every 5 minutes there was a scene involving some horniness. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was going on all over the place.
And Bonzo says, hate to be that guy, but Andor was barely actually Star Wars. Fair enough, Bonzo Kilborn. Fair enough. We respect that. How you feel about it. Outcast Lance says, Spartacus over Rome any day. Far more brutal, just works.
It's great fun. Is Spartacus, and some of the acting in there is fantastic, and I really love the way that they do the dialogue. They have this really strange way of writing lines. They sort of miss out prepositions, things like that, and it just sounds so good. Like one of the what's his name, John Hannah, is just he owns that show and owns that. He just owns it. But we really started laughing because he says, what is it? He says, once again, the gods spread cheeks and ram cock in arse, you know, and so they don't sort of say the or the and things like that. They kind of miss all that stuff out, and it has this really unique cadence to the way that they say everything, and it's a really neat idea because it just gives it it doesn't sound quite like contemporary English, although it is. It gives it that feel that they are actually speaking in Latin, and you're listening to it in Latin, even though you're not.
And Nathan says, I'm excited for season 3 of The Mandalorian. So am I, Nathan, as you can see. And Gary Bando Sandwich Worthington says, Mando is back. He is. He's right behind me. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lance, I'm going to be in the United Kingdom for Star Wars Celebration. I think I might have mentioned it to you once or twice, but sure, I can come and visit you while I'm in the UK. It'd be great to see you, Lance, and finally meet you. Yes, The Hidden. Thank you. I always thought HBO's Dream On was similar to the Hitchhiker series. I love the Hitchhiker series. I felt like that was real. Like there was this mysticism in America, pre-internet, pre all that sort of, the tech kind of situation. You can just kind of roam the United States for years and years and years, and no one would ever know what had happened to you out there. This where you could just disappear, so to speak.
Yeah, do you know, that's funny. Just to dial it back just a second, that's the thing about The Last of Us, actually, is you do get to see these great American landscapes. Like I forget where they were today, but it wasn't Maine, but it looked like Maine. It was like cold and hard, and it was undeniably beautiful. But I wouldn't want to go there on holiday. But you do get these sort of constant vistas of America, which I really quite like. They really make use of the landscape, and as many people have said, there's a difference between Andor and Mandalorian, right? Mandalorian's obviously done on that stage, and everybody knows it's done on that 3D stage, whereas Andor wasn't. And you get these massive helicopter or drone shots of them, like tiny little figures going up a mountainside, and you can tell that it's all real, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, the location shot certainly added a lot of depth to Andor for me, and it looked good. It looked really good, because it was a real place and it had that sense of location, but also the vastness that it created. They did great with where they decided to go. How could you forget the scenes where the TIE fighters are going through the valley and they make such a big noise and everybody's going like, oh my God, that's so loud. Like it's so loud and shaky. So there's that. The Pirate Queen. Hi, Pirate Queen. How are you?
Oh, have you still got that link? Let me see. Because you were after that RPG thing. Hang on. Keep talking.
Oh, yeah. I made a short of it.
Oh, did you? All right. So you got it, Pirate Queen.
Yeah, and the short says, if you are looking for something, you go here. So, and I made the short because I figured that maybe Pirate Queen might want to find that information. So I made a short on my channel. So if you go to my channel and you go to shorts, you'll find it, and it has to do with looking for groups. So I'll just actually. Can I do it here? Yeah, I can. I'll share it. I figured the best way to get it out there would be to make a short of it. And here it is. Can I play it? No, you can't hear it, but it says if you're looking for a group for tabletop, looking for a group is the place to go on Reddit. And you can see it there. So if you go to my shorts on my channel, this is where you go, Pirate Queen. Russ told me about it. I made this a few weeks ago. Oh, LFG, and you'll find who you're looking for in your area. Take care, everybody. Can you hear it, Russ?
Yeah, we heard it, yeah.
Everybody, are you looking for a group to play tabletop games with? Check out Reddit's Looking for a Group. It's r/LFG, and you'll find who you're looking for in your area. Take care, everybody. Hello, everybody. So what do you think of that?
Sweet, that's really great, and I hope you find something there, Pirate Queen. We hadn't forgotten you. I just couldn't remember what the group was called at the time.
Yeah, so it's up there, and anybody who's looking for a group, and wants to do tabletop or any kind of games like that, that's where you can go to find that. So I made a short out of it, and it's there, Russ. And thank you for sharing that information with us, Russ, and I could share it with everybody. Um, Gary says late night raunchy TV has its knockers.
It
Absolutely.
certainly did have its knockers.
And Seville says he loved Andor. It was Star Wars depicted through a lens of realism. I understand why many prefer the more romanticized mythological Star Wars and the other Star Wars
It's
titles.
interesting that you say that, Stubble, because I was watching a thing about Star Wars on YouTube, and it was sort of comparing and contrasting that aspect of the Skywalker saga with the actual sort of rebellion of Andor and his cohorts. And the sort of argument that they were making is that the stories of Han Solo and Luke Skywalker are sort of that galaxy's own myths, and they're somewhat romanticized. So you're getting a sort of romanticized version of what Luke Skywalker actually did, and a romanticized version of Han Solo, and they were probably much more like Andor, and what were the Jedi Knights really like? Were they more like Knights Templar? And yeah, it was just a really interesting thing to watch. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Absolutely. And the Outcast creator says there's something very Shakespearean about the dialogue in Spartacus. Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to watch it, and I certainly will. I'm eager to see any review on it. Dark Plato says what autumn really means is that Grogu is back. Is that what I mean?
I think it might be. Yeah, the poster behind you gives it away.
Vicman de Santiago says, "Hola, everyone." Well, hello to you, Vicman de Santiago. Welcome to Sunday Brunch. Dinosaurs separate head from shoulder.
Exactly. That's exactly what they do. Yeah.
He's Dark Lotus says, I love Spartacus, but Rome better capture what Roman culture might look like. Spartacus didn't capture that to the same
They
degree.
did. It was quite sort of comic booky with Spartacus. But as I said before, what really impressed me about the Spartacus TV show is they get the gladiator stuff absolutely spot on. The fighting, obviously, they're jumping around like ninjas and fantasy characters and all the rest of it. But when you had traditional pairings, which they don't show in Spartacus. But when you have a Thracian fighting a Mamillo, which are two different styles of gladiator, they had all of the correct kit, correct helmets on, and like I said, you could get the Iron Man inside the helmet shot of each actor. But when they were doing the long shots, like the Thracian had the smaller shield and the sort of slightly curved sword, and the Miller had the bigger shield and the straight gladius. They didn't need to do that, and they absolutely got the stuff in and around it spot on. Like the villas looked correct, the clothing was correct, everything was correct. It's such a zany show. And Spartacus really is over the top when it comes to sort of like the executions and the fake CGI blood flying everywhere. And it's obviously fake. It's supposed to look that way. It's supposed to look like a comic book. But they knew what they were on about. Like they had done their research, and I had no doubt about the amount of research that went into that show.
And Pirate Queen says, thank you so much for the role-playing information.
Only a pleasure.
Nathan Trujillo says, I'm still waiting for Grogu to show up in an episode of The Last of Us and let Ellie know he knew Joel first. I wouldn't be surprised with these guys. Tom Jr. Jackson says, did you miss our All Quiet on the Western Front watch party yesterday? Check it out here on YouTube, guys. It's on the Burnettwork, soon to be Imagination Connoisseurs Unlimited. Darth Vader says Star Wars has a mystical dimension, but that doesn't mean that it should only be that way. Interesting.
That's right. I mean, how many Jedi Knights are there? How many in every billion people? And I'm sure that there is a fact. Yeah, I'm sure on the Wikipedia or something like that. Oh god, yeah, Wikipedia. Did you see the thing about where they came out and they've done a new page announcing everybody's sexuality for whatever reason? Best known to them. However, I'm sure that there must be some figure of how many Jedi Knights exist to every non-Force sensitive person, and they would be a rare thing, right? We're used to seeing them because we follow the Skywalker trilogy or 9 films, whatever that is. However, they would be a rare breed, and it would be much more like Andor. So whoever was saying earlier on that there's room for both, yeah, I agree absolutely. And it's nice. I thought it was great to see another aspect of Star Wars. One of the things I actually saw again on YouTube was they've done this show called Bucketheads or something like that, which is about these stormtroopers after the Battle of Endor, and it's so well done, and you're sort of seeing it from the Empire's point of view, which is I think something that Andor again did really really well. Just didn't portray them all as moustache twirling villains. They were people that out there doing a job, and they thought they were doing a good job. They thought what they were doing was for the best, and I love that. So yeah, more of the same, please.
Yeah, and so Russ, what Gary Bandersandwich is right. Pedro is killing it.
Hmm.
He's competing with himself on The Last of Us, and of course, in March, Wednesday, for The Mandalorian. Um, Stubble says, "I'd like to see them make Grogu into a Dark Force user and maybe even an antagonist. I wonder if they dare do that." Honestly, I don't mind Grogu using the Force, but I want him to I want his particular uses of the Force to have more consequences and more gravity than everybody else's. In
Mm.
other words, I think if he wants to use the Force to pull down a ship, that it's going to have some effect later on in the story that's profound, not just like, "Oh, I accidentally choked you. Sorry." And
Well,
Russ, I
isn't
want
this
you to bring up,
this this? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
please excuse me, Russ. I wanted to bring up the article that you sent me about this. Let's just look at this for a second. It automatically goes to Paramount Plus, um, and it has to do with
Oh
this. And
yeah.
maybe I'll get in trouble for seeing that bit, but stop doing that. Stop. Stop. Okay. Um, this is what you were talking about, Russ.
Yeah,
Um,
this is sort of came out of nowhere, didn't it?
Gender identity. The category for organic beings who had one or more of the following traits was not defined within a binary gender model. It wasn't? How do they know that? Who told them that?
Well, I don't know. I think as far as see, we got Luke Skywalker there, who's in the pole position. As far as I knew, in the expanded universe, which is now Legends, right? Didn't he get married to Mara Jade, and they had a
Yes.
heterosexual relationship and had a couple of kids and all that kind of thing? Yet now all of a sudden, apparently not. Now I know they got rid of Legends, but you'd sort of think that but who cares? What why is this a thing? This again, this just seems like they've just done something to try and make it controversial. When did we find out about Ben Kenobi, and since when was Grand Moff Tarkin? Yeah, it's just stupid. Who cares if they're if I I have no words, or perhaps you can carry this particular torch to me, because I was just like, why
Yeah.
have you come out with this now? Like, Luke Skywalker's been dead for nearly, when did that film come out? 2018, something like that.
Yeah. At least 5 years ago or so. And I'm not quite sure why. Uh, I can't explain it. Someone felt they had to add this page. It's just in case someone wanted to know. I don't understand it, but they wanted to put that in there. I thought that they were culturally defined in the story, but they're saying it's not. And I guess everything has to have a definition now for sexuality, as long as it fits
Even though these
within
characters
the
don't
parameters.
have, even though these characters, don't ever have sex. Yeah, I mean, I just Grand Moff Tarkin. What the hell, man? Why? Who cares?
Yeah, and Dark Plato says that it's what he saw taught in school. Insert the social binary into everything. It's unnecessary to do this unless that's one of the topics in your story. But if not, there's no reason to even go there. Now you have to suddenly think about whether somebody has a specific sexual direction. Why? Why do you have to think about that? If it's a story about sex, yeah. But since most of these stories that we're seeing are not about that, why does it have to be part of
Would
that?
Don't you think it's, I often wonder if these sort of things are done, um, to give these people who love being offended and love being on the right side of history, and love to disdain anybody that doesn't agree with them. Don't you think it's just done to annoy people? So you put it out there and go, and somebody's going to write a blistering response and say, why isn't that? And then they can instantly start labeling them as a
But
thisophobe or a thatophobe,
there's
right?
a way. Well, yeah, that's possible. That's a possibility. I also think that it justifies careers, because if you can justify this being significant and affecting people socially, you can write research papers in it and then ask for research grants focusing on this, in every category under the sun, and write that for the next 20 years. You could talk about how important it is to
You could do, but how ludicrous
define
is
that.
this? Literally, the first three characters on there are all dead and have been dead for many, 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 many years. Obi-Wan was killed in 1977, as was Grand Moff Tarkin. Guys are 40 years dead, and now all of a sudden we're wheeling out their corpses to put them on the flag, so to speak. It's distasteful. It's just stupid and it's wrong. And who cares and why? Well, as I say, it's done. It almost seems like it's done to bait people who are not of that persuasion or are fed up with these labels, been stuck on things that they have absolutely no reason to be stuck on. But instantly, as soon as you stick your head up above the parapet and say this is dumb, that instantly makes you the enemy, and then you can get labelled with an insulting label.
But it also, if you go ahead and set precedents where you're saying, okay, it's shown in popular fandom, and you write a research paper saying that it's significant to that. And hey, happy Sanjo, welcome to
Hey, Sanjo.
Sunday Brunch. Good to see you. Tom says the only sexual direction that matters is the one that goes to full 69. Thank you, Tom. Certainly very, very important when it comes to that. Thank you for, bring it to the basics, Tom. Yeah, I know why they would do this, because they want to be able to generate research, academic research in peer-reviewed journals. Once they establish a lot of that and do studies, they'll write a book, they'll kind of come out with a bunch of literature to support the importance of it. And they'll get funding for this. Like it's a funding situation where look at how significant it is. It's appearing everywhere. It's so important, and it legitimizes the entire field, as far as I'm concerned. But that's what I think the main point of it is. But Darth Plato says, same thing happened in the French Revolution. Saint-Collat went into theaters and demanded that line stories be changed to reflect language. Liberté, égalité, fraternité.
Well, that's what they've just done with Roald Dahl, haven't they? They've decided that he's too offensive to have certain words, so they've decided that they're going to rewrite Roald Dahl and put in things that are less offensive.
Yeah, we should probably talk about that, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, this is insanity, because where does it end? Where does it end? Who gets to decide? Who, they brought in some company called, I don't know, Implicitly Pretentious or something like that, whatever they were called, guardians of wokery, or whatever their fucking mission statement is, and they're going in, they're rewriting this stuff. And again, this article has caused complete outrage by people, because if you think that the terminology within those books are wrong and your kids are reading those books, then doesn't it become like a moment where you can say, well, look, that's how they used to talk in those days, and this is why it's not right these days, or don't worry about it. It's just, it's just a story. There's no need to be offended by it. And if you are personally uber offended by it, then don't rush out, pick up James and the Giant Peach and read it and rage read it to get offended by what Roald Dahl's got to say. Don't read it. How about that? How about you don't read it?
Tom Jr. Jackson says, check out and follow my Instagram feed if you are into cool Funko Pop pics. Guys, check out Tom Jr. Jackson's Funko Pop pics. He takes his Funko Pops, puts them in great backgrounds. You can see them doing all sorts of adventures. It is wonderful. And also check out Tom Jr. Jackson's YouTube channel. Guys, please do check that out and like and subscribe. Tom, we are all goof people. Yeah, what's kind of interesting about this is I think as a parent, you have to read stuff that your kids are going to, might read. So you read it before you give it to them, right? I mean, that's typically what parents do. They have to kind of screen stuff before they give it to their kids. And, I think every kid has their favorites, and every parent has their favorites for their kids. But this author's influence on, let's say the last 100 years is, just you can't measure it. You can't measure his influence. So it would, to go ahead and even go into what he's done, like no one could go ahead and this would be like one of those movies where in ancient times they said, I want you to strike this person's name every time it appears in the records. And it would be like you'd be striking for years, because his influence in books, in everything, in stories has been so phenomenal and used as a benchmark for so many other things that it would completely change what we know as our norms.
Yeah, I mean, he went in and changed some of his stuff because he realized that times had moved on. He wanted to, to sort of change it because it could be perceived as offensive or whatever. And that's fine. If an author wants to change their own work, then that's absolutely fine. But who the who the hell is going in and making decisions about what's best for Roald Dahl? I mean, the guy was a literary genius. If he wasn't, he wouldn't be as famous and as loved as he was. And pretty soon these will be the versions. There won't be any of the other versions. I don't still have my Roald Dahl books when I was a kid. God knows where they are. But these are now the versions that will be coming out. These are the versions that will be read, and it's just the guardians of our morality strike again and decide what they can and what we can and can't read and consume. It's
Yeah, and
absurd.
no,
It's
you're absolutely right, and I'm so glad that you did bring it up because, um, yeah, people are kind of trying to get the original versions of the books, and it's not just even an abridged version. This isn't what we're talking about. Isn't an abridged version in the sense of it was 1,000-page book and they made it into a 350-page book, and they removed unnecessary things, so to speak, or at least they say this is an abridged version. It's a smaller version of the book. We removed a lot of stuff in it. What they're doing is they're changing the actual content.
yes, and context of said content.
Yes. And so what that means is that you have a different story. What I think is interesting, Russ, for me, we see this happen a lot to be honest with you, in academia. But for me, my biggest book that I think is ridiculous to change, and they have tried to change it and done different things with it, is Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. And the book, actually, part of it is difficult to read because it's kind of written in I guess like a broken English style of writing.
Yeah,
And
Tom Huckleberry Finn certainly was. Tom Sawyer was not so much, but
yeah,
Huckleberry Finn was quite a hard read.
and when you're reading it, you're realizing that it's written this way because they're using the local language at the time, or at least let's say this is the author's interpretation of the local language at the time. And if you remove it, it's not the same book. But they've tried, like there are different versions. So it's not an abridged version. It's a version of the book that is completely changed from the
A
author.
sanitized version is what they're trying to give you.
Yeah. And so I think I'd read the one and I said, this is garbage, like it's supposed to be difficult to read. You're not going to feel comfortable speaking the way that one of the characters speaks, or even Finn speaks. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's meant very specifically to show a specific time period and what was going on. And it's maybe one of the best books ever to kind of give you an idea. It's not a historical event. It's kind of giving you a snippet of time that the author felt was significant to put into a book.
It was his time that he was writing about, right? He was a riverman, wasn't he, Clemens? Steamboat guy.
And so the idea that someone would want to go in and change it, it's similar to this for me. It's a book that has stood the test of time, and we can't go back and try and pretend like we can rewrite that. You can't. He was very talented. He was able to kind of capture something that was very special. So when they proposed changing it, it's kind of like a joke. Oh, no one can understand it. I'm like, well, that's because he's almost speaking in a different language, a different colloquial, idiomatic expressions. It's going to be difficult and hard to answer and read on purpose. He wanted you to understand what it meant for this person or how they communicated. And then, you kind of screwing with Dahl's situations for, oh, no, we can't use that phrase.
Yeah, exactly. And it's what's next then? Are we going to go back and start editing the Iliad now?
Yep.
Or are we going to go back and change a bit of Shakespeare now? Or are we going to go?
But they do, Russ. I've had to step away from certain Shakespeare companies as a performance artist because they on their own decided that they had to use a more proper version of the Shakespeare plays that fit into what was less offensive.
Well, then don't put on a Shakespeare play if you find it offensive. That's the point. Don't change it. Just don't do it.
And I said, I don't necessarily want to do Shakespeare that has been changed because you felt that was inappropriate. I don't care about that. I want to perform Shakespeare. I want to study Shakespeare the way Shakespeare was originally intended to be. I don't care if there's offensive material in it. There's offensive, anybody can find stuff offensive, and there can be an offensive material in any good story. So it's not necessarily the thing that's going to turn me away from wanting to do Shakespeare, but I can't go ahead and join a company that's gone ahead and said, yeah, don't worry, we have the right version of it. And
Yeah.
I've turned it down. I was like, I can't join that company as somebody who, recreationally likes to do Shakespeare. I can't go ahead and practice with them because it's not the same play.
No, it's not the same play. And it's, how dare you rewrite Shakespeare? I mean, there you can interpret Shakespeare. Plenty of people have done it, with contemporary dialogue and all that sort of thing. But in its purest form, you can't go around just chopping and changing it because you don't like it. And things change over time. So what was viewed as socially acceptable in the 70s is probably not as socially acceptable today. But that doesn't mean that those things didn't happen in the 70s. And you try and take all this stuff away, then you're giving people a false context about the past. You're essentially rewriting history to suit a sort of sanitized agenda, wherever, just to suit your own sensibilities. That's absurd.
Yeah, and Nathan talks about full Orwell happened to Dahl's writings. Very disappointing. I didn't know his first name was pronounced Roald all this time. Sorry, guys. I thought it was maybe they left out an N.
No,
Um,
he's Welsh.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's why I didn't know. And Tom Jr. Jackson says, but on the Roald Dahl front, the publisher has said they will publish a classic version that is unedited as well.
Yeah, was that a climb down though? I bet, because this was a huge news item. People were again, we were talking about coming to the end of this nonsense phase of the past sort of 10, 12, 15 years. This one blew up because even I heard, I don't watch the news, but even I heard about it. It's like, oh, this is a huge deal. People
Yeah,
just like, no.
Robert did a observations on it, so I was
Yes,
like,
I saw
wow,
that. Yeah.
okay, this must be really big. But I think that for me, it's classic literature. I don't know how other people feel about it. But I think it is because it's had such a profound effect over all of our lives. So I did just want to say that part. This article talks about how 40 years ago, or however long ago it was, there may have been some question about his work and if it was changed in any way. And I'm not talking about an abridged version. I just want to be very clear about that. We're talking about completely changing a lot of the words and context, as you said, Russ, and the meaning of the story. It's a different story now. Dahl says he would have set an enormous crocodile in publishers if they did change his work. And that's what it is. It's changing his work. Stubble recommends The Landlady by Dahl, a great short story that takes 5 minutes to read. And Tom says he likes twits.
Or what would they be called now? You couldn't call them.
Nope.
You
You
might
couldn't
be
call
called
them twats either.
the couple with learning difficulties, perhaps.
Nope.
Educationally challenged couple. I don't know. What would you? Not typically developed
The
couple.
extraordinarily different couple that learns in a different way.
There you go. Thank you, Aaron.
Vicman de Santiago says, the books of Dahl are still popular enough for people to still make money from them. The thing is, they are afraid of being canceled and lost money. It's just a shame. And they, something, Russ, they will make these different versions and they will sell like hotcakes too.
What do you think the different versions will? I wonder if there'll be a
they will sell because libraries and schools will buy them.
Yeah, libraries and schools will buy them. But I wonder if the populace will go out and go start buying all these the classic versions to push those up. Either way, it's a win-win for the publisher, but perhaps a cautionary tale that we shouldn't really be doing this.
And Bonzo Kilborn, you take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste to you. And Darth Vader says, oh my God, Russ, that's been going on since the late 60s. Yeah, yes. In the US, it's called Dead White European Males. That is why classics have been de-emphasized. Yes,
Yeah.
and Darth, this is what I was talking about. And of course, my favorite, at least my fun film about all this is one of my favorite films, Fahrenheit 451, and the movie that they made, of that story in, I guess it was the 1960s or
It's
70s.
60s, yes, or 70s. No, you're quite right. No, but this speaks to a point. I'm sure we've spoken about this before. Some time ago, the BBC, funnily enough, made a story about the Trojan War, like a 10-part or 7-part drama about the Trojan War, and Achilles, who's described as golden-haired Achilles in the story, and he's like physically. They had a black actor play him. And of course, people were like, "Well, why have you done this?" And they were like, "Well, why not?" And it's kind of like, "Well, because he's literally described in the book, and it's look absolutely enough." And of course, the typical, offense culture defense was, "You're just racist if you don't like him." There's no reason, but there's every reason. And I always said this: if they wanted to make a story about the Trojan War that had a black protagonist that dies in the end, no spoilers, make it about Memnon, and there you go, and that's it, and you can do the whole thing from Memnon's perspective. But they didn't. They chose to put Achilles as a person of color because they just knew that it would outrage people. They knew it would outrage scholars. They knew it would outrage people that are fed up with it, and that's why they did it. And you got to think about the actor that was doing that. This guy's just taking on a role because, hey, he's an actor. He's gonna take on the role, and it, for tokenism, for nothing else, and just be put out there because of the color of his skin. It's almost the R word in and of itself, I think.
Absolutely. And there it is, of course. I can't remember what the trailer sounds like, but it's probably something like Fahrenheit 541 with Julie Christie, like however and some kind of odd music,
Yeah,
with like drums or something. But
voiceover guy.
yeah. And honestly, I just loved it. They didn't, this was the book burning movie. They didn't imply that things were changed, but it's the same principle where they don't want certain things to be a certain way, so to speak. And so they just decide those books are outlawed. And of course, he was a fireman, is the character that gets to the pleasure of burning all these books. And
Hmm.
at the end, he finds some kind of book heaven where it's like, oh, look, here's the Kama Sutra, which they probably would have tried to burn, and other books about sex. And here's some books about, this or whatever that they thought was inappropriate. But it's kind of fun. I always remember, I just like the 1960s for those very interesting trailers, Russ, where it has to sound very out there and avant-garde, and nobody makes trailers like that anymore necessarily. But it was fun. There's Julie Christie, who starred in it, and Oscar Weiner. So there is that. But yes, Darth Plato's comment about the 60s. Mark Goes Blind Gaming. Hi, says, just popped in to say wonderful stream. Unfortunately, I have to catch this on the replay. No problem. Hey, Marcos Blind Gaming, you enjoy the rest of your day. We are glad to have you here. Hey, Nathan talks about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. Yes,
I
James.
love that one.
Mm-hmm. Me too, Nathan. It was great. Yeah. So it is kind of interesting. Yes, and Retro Nurgle says it's one of her favorite films. It was good, wasn't it? And she says Equilibrium.
I was literally just thinking that retro. I was just about to say it's kind of the same as Equilibrium.
Yes. And Stubble talks about how Patrick Stewart did Othello in the 90s with him as Othello, and the rest of the cast were black. It's called the photo negative Othello. If they did that today, they would be canceled. Well,
But it would never get made. You just wouldn't be allowed to. You wouldn't be allowed to do it. That's kind of the point.
Who recently got nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor as Macbeth was what's his name? He's a famous actor. He was in Glory. He was in
Denzel.
Yes, Denzel. He played Macbeth. Didn't he?
I imagine so.
Wait
I'm sure he did, but he did play Othello back in the day, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So did James Earl Jones, but at that time in Scotland, it would have been highly unlikely to see someone like Denzel running around in a kilt. Now, if they've updated it for modern audiences or what have you, and put it in a different setting, fine. You know, no one's going to get bent out of shape about it. But you know, it just depends on the context, really, doesn't it? But
Yeah, and
he's a fantastic actor, is Denzel.
I think that's how he was trained as a Shakespearean actor. He's been doing it for a good long period of time of his life. But what is my point? My point is that, yeah, some of the Shakespearean plays, they do kind of switch the characters around. Often, especially Othello, you know, a lot of times it may not be a person of color who plays Othello. It's just that time and time again, we see that all the time. And they're still doing that. It's not, I don't know how it falls into play in Shakespearean productions. But what I can say, as I told you earlier, Russ, is that I've had to turn down a lot of companies that I was very interested in getting involved with because they changed the play. It's not the same play. It
No.
doesn't have the same impact in what you're saying. But, you know, Stubble, you make a good point about cancellations. I doubt that Patrick Stewart would be doing that now. That might not be a project he'd be interested in anymore. Yeah, Dennis says, how will they handle the two versions? Well, there used to be a regular version and an abridged version. You know, for as long as I can remember, the abridged version would be the version that takes out a lot of excess stuff that the editors feel is not necessary for either a modern audience or even for children to read. They don't need to know a lot of the stuff in there, especially for a book like Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, which has a lot of political discussions. And maybe Darth Plato knows what I'm referring to. That may not be necessarily important to the reader at the time. And so you would get this abridged version. It's called an abridged version. And they didn't make it easier for you to read. It's just removed a bunch of sections of it that may not necessarily that the editors feel are not that important for maybe students or somebody else to read it. And you can get the full version. The full version is the unaltered, right, Russ?
Yeah. And they used to do that with I remember you could get the younger readers edition of things like, you know, I remember getting the younger readers edition of Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, and then you could get the complete unabridged, which I think was written by a guy called Donald F. Glutt, as far as I remember. I seem to remember he was the guy that wrote all the Star Wars novels.
So they have different titles for the versions, Dennis. So that's how that would be. Now, I don't know how they would say the version that has been, how would they call it? Is it re-editing? What is it called, Russ?
I would imagine that it would be the other way around. So what you would have is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and then you would have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory complete and unabridged, and that would be your original version. So I don't think that the new censored and rewritten versions by the Morality Police, which is what Rogue Thinker just said, which is brilliant. The Morality Police, whoever decided they were going to do this, that's going to be the version, and then you're going to have a version that's the complete and unabridged version.
And in my high school, when we studied Shakespeare, and we were not Shakespeare scholars in high school, but there's a lot of Shakespeare plays and stories that are required reading for certain high schools, and mine was one of them. We had the unabridged version of the plays and works. So we went through a good portion of them, and certainly there is a lot of language in there that's not easily understood. And so that was why we were studying it. It was to learn about the different versions of English and some of these other ways that authors express themselves. So that was the whole purpose of studying it in the original version, because if you change it, then you're not studying the original version. You're not going to understand what the author's intention is. So you do lose a lot of that when you decide to say that you're going to be a company that has changed it. That's their choice. That's their choice. I respect their choice, not the choice I wanted to make as somebody who is interested in studying that.
Yes.
So, yes. And Retro Nurgle says, yes, he not only did Denzel play Macbeth for the 2021 production, but he was nominated for Best Actor in that role. FYI.
I actually must watch the Macbeth with Fassbender in it. I keep meaning to watch it, and I've never actually seen
we
it.
should do a watch party of that.
Because the soundtrack to that is
Let's do a watch
so
party.
good. Yeah, okay, we should do that.
Stubble says, I think Arden would love to see Denzel in a kill. Yes. Yeah. You guys are making me laugh. Dennis says he met Denzel in a playground where he mentored poor kids. Oh, Retro Nervous says, I think messing with books of any kind is deceptive and a destruction of historical artifacts. Agreed.
She's quite
Hey.
right. And
Mhm.
where does it end, retro? That's the point. Okay, we're talking about a bunch of children's books where they've changed, like, I think one of the ones I heard about was, any woman could sort of be work for a businessman, or do this. And now all of a sudden it's like, any woman could be, head of the corporation and a, molecular scientist. It's just things like that, because saying that the lady might be a secretary suddenly is insulting. Well, I would say that's probably insulting to all the secretaries out there. But whichever way around you want to use it. But where does it end? What are we going to change next? Like I said, are we going to start editing the Iliad now? Are we going to start taking offensive words out of Huckleberry Finn? Are we going to start just whitewashing everything? Just taking out all the bits that we don't want, that we think as the arbiters of all that is good and right and moral and just in this world of 2023. It's up to us. Don't worry, we'll do it. When is it going
Um,
to end?
Chips Bewick, well said, Russ. Chips Bewick says, greetings, true believers. Hey, Chips Bewick. We also have Mighty Orbats who's here today. Hi, Mighty Orbats. Mighty Orbats says, yet another instance of a message. Yes, it certainly is. And yes, you guys are talking about the estate of Doll and all this sort of stuff. Stubble says, I wonder when they will start to change old paintings. Well, they used to paint little leaves and olive things over the genitals of some of these paintings. So that's not something that hasn't been done before, Stubble. But I think the first thing we might see is a change in the color of the individuals before we see anything else. Because there seems to be
God,
a lot
can
of
you
sensitive
can you
people.
imagine? Can you imagine? And then what they're going to do? Start, like, getting rid of all the crucifixes in case it offends, a different religion. I can see them doing it. We've got to
There's a
get
lot
rid
of
of that
people.
church. That might offend the people across the road. We can't have that church in there. It's just absurd.
There's a lot of people who feel they have to go into other people's artwork and put in other stuff. And that's, to reflect a more what they feel is a more balanced and realistic point of view of historical paintings or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And this is what they love doing. Pirate Queen says, I loved Taming of the Shrew up until the ending. Teenage me was so mad at the ending, I might have been
Mhm.
quite willful in my youth. Well, Pirate Queen, that is a great play. Um, and Mighty Orbit says, I have the complete works of Shakespeare and the 2-volume lexicon and quotation dictionary as recommended by my professor. Yes. And I also have Shakespeare quotes on my phone on there. And some of them are just fun to say. It's like, I have no context to even say this, but I'm going to say it. It's like I can never say it anywhere, but I know it. So there. Dark Plato says, if the goal is transformation, then it doesn't end. Certainly, it's an unsatiable group. Tom Jr. Jackson talks about Kenneth Branagh Much Ado About Nothing, and Emma Thompson was in that, if I remember. But my favorite
And
Shakespeare book,
Denzel.
yes, that's right, is Taming of the Shrew. Interesting. My favorite has and will always be Romeo and Juliet, guys. So I just put that out there. My favorite play. The painting thing has actually been going on for a long time, Stubble. Yes, didn't they already fix? Yes, they did, Rogue Thinker. They did. And that is absolutely why I brought up that example. I remember it might have even been in the 70s or the 80s when they did it. Quite some time ago. Look, cigarette removed from the fingers of a society gal in the New York in the 1930s, because they don't want to show somebody with a cigarette because they feel that would be offensive or bad choice to show a person. Yep. Rogue Thinker says just chisel of the wieners and out at least there, right?
I think he means put a leaf there, but yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, something, Russ, I think we've had a very interesting discussion today about everything that's going on. And I kind of want to close out with just saying that Avatar is still making money.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's going to continue to make money to the end of the year. This is my prediction. I just think that, James Cameron and this film that people are still going to see in the summer, I think it's going to have a huge box office draw for people who couldn't see it during the year for whatever reason. I just think it's just going to, as long as it's in the theater, it will make bank. What do
Gonna
you
make
think?
bank. Yeah, I do. I think it's quite funny how everybody just sort of didn't release anything. Oh, fuck, Avatar's coming out. We better not put anything out. So it had a sort of clear run to the box office, and it's making zillions and zillions and zillions of dollars. But again, it doesn't seem to have ever had any sort of cultural impact, does it? It's not, people just aren't talking about it. Everybody's going to see it, but there's not a lot to say about it. It looks amazing. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
More power to them. I hope it is successful. I like James Cameron a lot for what he did in the past. I'm not particularly interested in Avatar. I'm not sure that it'll have the cultural impact of a Star Wars or a Blade Runner or something like that. But maybe I could be wrong. Because it's like, there's 20 Avatar movies coming out over the next 20 years or something like that. Like, he's got loads of them.
we can't predict what it will mean, let's say, for generations to come. We
Well, we're a
don't know.
generation after the first one, aren't we? It was 13, 14 years ago, and everyone saw the first. I've seen the first one, but no one can really tell you anything about it.
I see what you're saying. Well, perhaps you're correct. I'm certainly not going to say you're wrong. For me, I felt that the breakout star of this of Avatar 2 was Jack Champion, who plays Spider.
Mhm.
And the reason why I thought, did you see it, Russ? Did you get a chance to see
No,
it?
I haven't bothered.
The reason why I thought it was a breakout role for him was because in the story he has to make a decision. He's a young man and he has to make a decision, and it's a very important decision. And I almost thought to myself, what are they going to show this young man doing? Because I think might even be a reflection of how a lot of people could interpret how young men behave in the modern day. And I got very cautious about this because, we could clearly see that, Jake Sully's family and everybody's trying to support him. And, okay, so the big baddies are coming from Earth. We're the baddies. And, we're trying to hurt the Navi.
Mm.
But this part where that character Spider has to make this decision, I thought was really important, and I think was more indicative of what the movie shows. Is that I believe that the reason why it is true they want the money from the Navi, they want all this precious stuff, but I also think a lot of this stuff has to do with peer pressure and what people will do under a certain level of pressure, how they can be bent. And so this is how I view the film. That may not be the intention, and that might not be how anybody else views the film, but that's how I view the film, because he had to make this decision. He had to make it in a few seconds, Russ. And I thought it
Mhm.
was really important. And I know that people are sometimes saying that these newer generations don't have the same backbone as others, but I think when push comes to shove, Russ, I think they would make the right decisions, as we witnessed in this movie. So I
Mhm.
did want to say that. And I also think that it shows that even under extreme amounts of pressure to go in one direction, there will be people who will fight against that, and essentially do what there was no right or wrong decision, but I felt that that was the one that was right for him. He went with his gut. And, in the end, we also saw that the other character involved also had a difficult decision to make. And what was important to him initially, he realized he had to go with what was really important to him. So
Mhm.
for me, that was the story. And it was nice. Sigourney Weaver was in it, and she's this new character. That was all lovely and everything. But this part with this, I don't want to say what it is because it'll spoil it, but this
Sure.
young boy and this older guy have this decision to make, and it was really critical, maybe to me the most important part of the film. Stuff that we don't always see in modern film, that hope between the older generation of men and a younger generation of young men. So that's how I see Avatar Part 2 and its legacy. For Part 1, I told you the only reason why I saw Part 1 is because Worthington was in it. So guys, I'm not this overly moralistic person when it comes to Avatar. I was very upset when he decided to become a Navi. So there is that. But it's okay. I'm a grown up and I can handle stuff like that. I'm not going to be like, don't ever see Avatar. You won't see smoking hot Worthington anymore. I'm not going to say that.
There's always Clash of the Titans.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And he was great in that too. So, I kind of look at it from that point of view. I haven't really been seeing things like that, Russ, except for maybe in Band of Brothers, or,
Mhm.
movies like that, where there's an older guy who's trying to shape the lives of these young men. in a rough neighborhood. You know the film I'm referring to?
Band of Brothers.
Yeah, is that the right film? Is it?
Band of Brothers was the HBO show about the Americans in World War II, right?
Okay, no, not Band of Brothers. There's another film called, oh gee, what is it called? It's about this guy who's trying to guide these kids in this neighborhood, and it's a bad neighborhood. And he pretty much does everything he can to make sure that these kids go in the right direction. He's trying to help at-risk youths, so to speak.
It
And
could be also called Band of Brothers, I guess. I don't know. I'm not familiar with what you're saying.
No, but anyway, the point that I'm making is I'm not seeing a whole bunch of movies that are reflecting that core in it. And I think that for some, maybe nobody, but I think this is my theory. For some, when I saw that, I immediately thought, wow, this is the one of the most important things in the story.
Yeah.
It's a 2 hour whatever thing, but that was the most important thing in the story, showing men, of course, in their being strong, being fathers, being protectors, but also that decision. So if anything, I'd say go ahead and watch it for that purpose. But yeah,
much like The Last of Us with Joel and Ellie, right? He's a mentor figure to this girl, and that's like a rare thing these days. I know the Critical Drinker often talks about the lack of male mentors, but again, I think there's a swing. I think it's starting to change slowly.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys are making comments about going to see Avatar again. Hollywood blacked out yesterday until this morning due to freezing temperatures. I heard that there was a very, very uncommon Southern California snowstorm. And several talks about this new Ant-Man surely haven't had a strong impact. It felt like a wet blanket on the floor. No one is picking it up.
That's true. We haven't even mentioned it, and it's the kickoff of Phase 5, and I've heard conflicting reports about this one. Some saying it's it's the greatest movie of all time, and other people saying it's absolute garbage. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I must get around to watching it. I will get around to watching it because I remember I enjoyed the first one. It was very good.
Mm-hmm. And of course we have here Dennis Mason talking about he remembers when Marvel made him weep with joy. Everybody remembers those days. But I'm afraid, Dennis, we're not in that time period anymore. Not sure, says Chips, the cultural impact of Avatar outside the technology. Yeah. I tried to kind of put it in context. I don't know if it will.
It's kind of like Avatar in that regard. It's almost like one of those sort of demo cars that you see get made. These like really high tech futuristic cars that they're never going to put into production, but they've got all the stuff on it. Or like fashion models or whatever. No one's ever going to go down the street wearing a bird cage on their head, but it's just sort of show the concept of what can be done with the fashion, or what can be done with the car, and what sort of stuff's going to make it into your bog standard car or your shop on the high street. And Avatar seems to be the same way. It's almost like a showcase to show what you can actually do with the technology, and then people will take some of that and go off and use it elsewhere. Perhaps that's I guess Chips is right in that regard.
Yeah, and yeah, it is. It's fascinating, but it's certainly not Star Wars or Harry Potter. It's true. Yes, the horrible version of Clash of the Titans, the one with Worthington, Rogue Thinker. Hi, Rogue Thinker. Am I thinking of Sleepers? Is it Sleepers, Nathan? Is it Sleepers? This is a good question. I don't know. Let me just see if I can find it really quickly. I have no idea. No, it's not. It's not Sleepers. That's a different thing. But anyway, guys, it's been so great. Hey, Lorena, so good to see you this afternoon. Hope you were well, and hope you're having a great Sunday, guys. Of course, check Lorena and I out on our watch party tonight Monday night of The Last of Us. I don't even know if she can make the Monday night one, but we will be on the Burnettwork for our ladies of the PGS show, and also on her network for Toxic Male Appreciation. So that's coming up. I hope you were well, Lorena. So and do check out Lorena's channel. So guys,
sorry, before you go, Jamin says strike back, just so we can get Russ to light up. Yeah, so I'm feeling a little bit tired today. I had a bit of a hectic weekend. But yes, no, I'm watching Spartacus at the moment, Jamin, which is up there with Strike Back as one of my favorites. But yeah, we will be doing Strike Back at some stage. Definitely, I absolutely love it. I don't think I'll bother with the first season. I remember the first season was, it was finding its feet and it wasn't great and it hardly gets mentioned. It's sort of seasons 2 and 3 and 4, I think, and just when it gets to absurd levels of boom boom and bang bang, if you see what I mean. And yeah, I definitely love that.
Yeah. So, Russ, where can people find you?
Normally here, or you can drop me a line at contact@russellwhitfield.com. But more importantly, where can people find you, RM?
Guys, you can always find me here on my channel, Positive Fandom, where I do all the Parley and the Fandom on Sundays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Sunday Brunch with Russ for our Sunday Brunch show. But you can also find me on the Burnettwork, guys. I am the creative content director of the Burnettwork, soon to be called the United Nation Connoisseurs Unlimited. So you can find me there. I do a show on Monday nights with Lorena called Ladies of the PGS. But I also do other shows, watch parties. I do a PGS moving image show, PGS Treks, PGS Star Wars, just to name a few. We got another show coming up called Catherine's Corner, or at least I think that's what it's going to be called. It's going to feature Catherine Cook, a very good friend of mine. And of course, you've seen her on the channel many times, Star Wars expert and just a fantastic movie reviewer. So she should be coming up too. Guys, I just want to thank all of you for your support. Guys, I am streaming Star Wars Legacy here at practically every day on the channel for a few hours. If you want to see what the game is like, I am not an aggressive player. I, just wander around, it's just very calm kind of play. And you can also find my watch parties for The Last of Us. And as one of you said, Pedro Pascal twice in 1 week for for Wednesday, 3 a.m. for Mandalorian season 3, which is starting on Wednesday. I will be doing a live show at 3 a.m. I'm also doing a 3 a.m. show on Thursday for Picard season 3. We'll be doing episode 3 with Julian Mushkin on the Burnettwork. I do have more review shows coming up. Lorena and I are going to be doing a watch party for Megan on March 4th on the Burnettwork. That's right. Megan, the movie, that new movie about the android. We're going to be doing a live watch party there. Russ, if you want to come and join us, you can. It's going to be at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, which probably be like 8 or 9 or 10.
10 o'clock.
Yeah, it's up to you. We're going to do a live watch party for that. So, yeah, it's supposed to still be happening, Rogue Thinker. It is supposed to still be happening on the network. So we are discussing a lot of things that are supposed to be occurring. So hopefully that will happen. Thank you so much, Dino Dinosaur. And thank you so much, everybody. Guys,
Thanks,
join me, Nerd Girl and I today at 7 p.m. Lance may be joining us. Russ, you're, welcome to join us as well if you wish.
No, I'm going to be taking Sam out for, she's boxing at the moment, and then I'll be taking her out for a pizza after that, and then we're going to be watching the Jake Paul Tommy Fury fight. So I am booked.
Wow, that is great. That's cool. I just want to thank everybody for watching. Hey, thanks, Rogue Thinker. Guys, thank you to you all. The Hidden just had a last question about it's 2 people actually. Mighty Orbits, thank you as well. He wanted to know, was it disappointing that Ant-Man 3 only saw King as a tease? No, I think that it was what it promised. The trailer is what the movie promised it would be. And I was not expecting anything bigger than that. So I wasn't disappointed. And quick question for Russ. What is that emblem on your t-shirt?
It's my daughter Sam's first football team was QAFC. It's before she moved across to Richmond Park and Chelsea and Fulham and stuff like that. This is the first one, which was just down the road. So we as dads, they were doing a fundraiser or whatever, and we all bought sweatshirts and things like that. So that's what this is. It's lovely and warm though. So fight prediction. Head says Paul, heart says Fury. I think Fury will have to knock him out to win. He's not going to get a points decision. And I think it really comes down to who handles it better on the night. And I think Paul is more used to these big occasions than Tommy Fury. I mean, he's had 8 fights, but he hasn't really fought anybody. Whereas Jake Paul's so used to being put under this amount of scrutiny. However, I think if the occasion doesn't get to Fury, then he should win, because the tactics to beat Paul is fairly easy. He's got this huge right hand, so just keep moving away from that right and just keep peppering him with the jabs and try and put her under sustained and educated pressure. And I think that's the path to victory. I think if Fury goes charging out there and tries to get involved in a war, Paul has got that equalizer punch. It doesn't matter how good you are at boxing and how long you've been doing boxing. If you get smashed on the chin with a decent punch from someone who's not even a particularly good boxer, you're going to go over. And you've seen him floor people, knocking them out. I think it was the guy who he knocked out, or I can't remember the guy, but he was a professional. He was a proper MMA. It wasn't the guy who I can't remember the guy's name. But he knocked him spark out. All right, he was an MMA guy and not a boxer, but even so. But then again, Paul's used to fighting people that are in their 40s and 50s and not actual professional boxers. We'll just have to see. It's a real 50-50, and it's captured the imagination in a way. Like, I'm interested. I love boxing anyway, but it's genuinely got me interested in this. And I've never been interested in the influencer boxing before. I watched the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather one, like everybody else, which is an absolute farce. But McGregor made a believer out of hundreds of millions of people that he actually stood a chance. And it was only after the first bell rang you just thought, oh no, I know how this is going to go. And Floyd carried him for 8 or 9 rounds until he got bored of him, and then got him out of there. So I don't know, Dino. As I said, heart says Fury because I think it would be good for boxing. Head says Paul. If it goes to points, it'll definitely be given to Jake Paul. There's no shadow of a doubt that's going to happen. But then he might have to take on Carl Froch, and that'll be hilarious because Carl Froch will deposit Jake Paul on Mars. Absolutely, that would be hilarious. He would get taken to pieces. So, yeah, we'll see.
Alrighty then, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tom Jr. Jackson, we are all goof people. Subscribe and like Tom Jr. Jackson's YouTube channel and Instagram channel. You're going to find it in the chat. And Russ, thank you so much for being here as always. It's always a great show with you. Guys. And remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you for everything. Bye-bye.